A little boy was sentenced to 10 years in prison as soon as he was born. As the only child in the women's prison, he became the darling of the prison. Even the warden wanted to hold him. On the boy's first birthday, all the inmates prepared gifts for him, and even the prison guards celebrated his birthday. On the day of his birthday in the prison cell, they did not only give him a birthday cake and wear gorgeous dresses, but they also prepared a big birthday party for him. With everyone's eager eyes on him, the boy didn't hesitate to pick up the handcuffs. Everyone's expression instantly froze. Who put the handcuffs there? Prison guard Jamie felt guilty and admitted it was her. But Granny Lynn quickly defused the situation by saying that the boy would either become a lawyer or a judge in the future. Everyone cheered up again. They violated the rules and took off their prison uniforms to take a photo with the boy. Unexpectedly, the laughter was heard by Director Kim, who was passing by. Director Kim, who rarely smiled, immediately stopped and walked towards the cell. The female prisoners hurriedly changed their clothes, but Director Kim caught them in the act. The boy was born into a life of imprisonment. The inmates celebrated his birthday, but Director Kim caught them. Everyone was told to face the wall for reflection, while the little boy, who didn't understand what was happening, happily ran to his mother, begging her to hold him. However, his mother, Annie, dared not move, and heartlessly refused her son's request. Director Kim then quickly discovered the group photo. She demanded to know who took the picture, reminding them that it was against the rules. The prison guard, Jamie, immediately admitted it was her, but Annie, in order to protect Jamie, claimed responsibility, explaining that she begged Jamie to take the photo to commemorate her son's first birthday. However, Director Kim showed no leniency, tearing the photo to pieces and throwing it on the ground. Granny Lynn couldn't bear to see this injustice, and spoke up for Annie. Director Kim, with a look of disdain, questioned whether a female prisoner could raise a child. This remark pierced Annie's heart like a knife. Annie endured long-term domestic violence from her husband. Even during her pregnancy, he continued to physically abuse her. Unable to bear it any longer, Annie accidentally killed her husband. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and gave birth to her son, Alex, while incarcerated. According to regulations, Annie could care for her son in prison for 18 months, after which he would be sent to a welfare institution for adoption. One day, a new cellmate arrived. A fat girl named Sarah approached the new girl Kelly aggressively, but she showed no fear, warning her to avoid trouble if she didn't want to die. Little Alex greeted the new girl Kelly, only to be pushed down to the ground, causing him to cry loudly in fear. Annie immediately protected her son, but the new girl Kelly insisted that the prison was not a place for raising children. Unable to tolerate it, Annie slapped the girl, leading to a physical altercation between them. Their fight quickly alerted the prison guards, and both were placed in solitary confinement. As a result of the brawl, one of the female inmates was repeatedly sexually assaulted by her stepfather. After she was incarcerated, she became a violent person. She hit her head against the wall as hard as she could, causing the snow-white wall to be stained red. Luckily, the guards found her in time and stopped her. The girl was named Kelly. She was also a victim. She was abused by her stepfather when she was a child. When she grew up, her stepfather used to force her to sleep with him. To make things worse, her cowardly mother stood by and did nothing. After so many years, Kelly couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed a candlestick and attacked. Her stepfather died instantly. When her mother found out, not only did she not comfort Kelly, she blamed her for being a pest and a criminal. Kelly became desperate and tried to commit suicide several times. Annie couldn't help but sympathize with her. Back in the cell, little Alex reached out his hand to Kelly. This time, she didn't push him away. In little Alex's embrace, Kelly felt a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. A young boy is sentenced to 10 years in prison just after being born. Little Alex brings a lot of joy to the female prisoners. One day, he tightly hugged Kelly. At this moment, the prison bully saw Kelly, who had just arrived, and wanted to establish dominance over her. Unexpectedly, Kelly didn't care about her at all. The prison bully immediately exploded and pushed little Alex to the ground. Annie immediately rushed over to protect her son. Unexpectedly, the next second, Kelly raised her fist and gave the prison bully a strong blow. Instantly, two angry women rushed over and started a brawl. Annie rushed up and grabbed the prison bully by the neck. Fortunately, prison guard Jamie arrived in time and stopped them. That day, the prisoners were going to organize a choir. Director Kim immediately became furious. What's the point of organizing a choir with murderers? It turned out that a few days ago, the prison organized everyone to watch a choir performance. Annie's got another 6 months before she's gotta part ways with her son. So she also wanted to form a choir as a farewell gift to her son. Director Kim was strongly against it, but her boss, the warden, agreed, and assigned Annie the task of forming the choir. If she performed excellently, she would be granted a special pardon for a day, allowing her to take little Alex out for a day. Annie was extremely happy to hear this. Since Alex was born, he had never seen the outside world. The female prisoners want to form a choir, but Annie is tone deaf. Every time she sings to soothe her son, he gets scared by her singing. How could she possibly organize a choir? She discussed this with her cellmate, who also discouraged her. How could they form a choir in prison? Just then, little Alex started crying. Grandma Lynn took the child, and soon he fell asleep. The next day, the news about forming a choir was posted. Annie said that as long as they performed well, they would have the chance to perform outside the prison. Prison guard Jamie quickly stopped her and scolded her for being crazy. Performing publicly was not an easy task, but Annie didn't think it was difficult. Grandma Lynn used to be a music professor. However, Grandma Lynn disagreed. Grandma Lynn used to be a famous musician. She had a successful career, a happy family, and 2 lovely children. But one day, she came home early and accidentally caught her friend and husband in a compromising situation. She broke into a fit of rage and drove right into him, causing her husband to die on the spot. Grandma Lynn was convicted of intentional homicide, but luckily, the death penalty had been abolished by then. She would spend the rest of her life in prison, tarnishing her children's reputation. They still couldn't forgive her. Despite her being hesitant, her love for music quickly took hold of her. Grandma Lynn couldn't resist sitting at the piano and playing. She then agreed to join the choir. This is the Women's Prison Choir, with Grandma Lynn as the conductor. Based on everyone's vocal range, they were divided into soprano, mezzo-soprano, and alto. Finally, Annie, who was tone deaf, was also included in the choir by Grandma Lynn, which made Annie very happy. The choir was practically established, but without professional training. Everyone sang like they'd never heard music in their lives, and the high notes were impossible to reach. Grandma Lynn said they were just 1 soprano short. Annie suddenly remembered Kelly. Kelly used to be a student at the music academy, but she didn't want to participate and even mocked Grandma Lynn, saying that a death row inmate should just wait to die instead of causing trouble. This angered Grandma Lynn, who then slapped her. Kelly saw no hope in her life. Every time her mother came to visit her, she refused to meet her, but her mother persisted in visiting every visitation day. One day, Kelly saw her aging mother through the window. At that moment, her mother turned around. Kelly panicked and hid, but the next moment, tears flooded her eyes. She couldn't forgive her mother. Through Annie's mediation, Kelly took the initiative to apologize to Grandma Lynn. These female prisoners are all serious offenders, most of whom have committed murder. Grandma Lynn played her daughter's favorite song for Kelly. She told Kelly that for those who love her, even in dire situations, she should strive to live on. Grandma Lynn's words melted Kelly's icy heart, and she sobbed uncontrollably in Grandma Lynn's embrace. Although they had a soprano now, the choir was still disorganized, with each member singing independently without harmony. Grandma Lynn wanted to teach the prison bully how to sing, but she responded disrespectfully. Annie rushed over and got into a scuffle with the bully. To help everyone let go of their grievances, Grandma Lynn encouraged them to share the reasons for their imprisonment. Annie also explained the reason for forming the choir, hoping everyone could help her fulfill this wish. After the female prisoners opened up to each other, they finally overcame their barriers and fully devoted themselves to rehearsals. With everyone's help, Annie's singing no longer went off-key, and even little Alex could fall asleep to their singing. The choir of murderers won their first performance, smiling and dancing as they sang. At that moment, they were no longer prisoners but joyful little spirits. Everyone present was infected by their energy, dancing along to the music. Even the stern director Kim couldn't help but show satisfaction. The once dull prison was now lively and buzzing with excitement. The prison warden was very pleased with Annie's performance. Annie planned where to take little Alex for fun, but 6 months had passed, and it was time for Alex to be adopted. The day of the pardon coincided with the day Alex was to be adopted. Prison guard Jamie suggested that Annie's relatives adopt Alex, so that she could reunite with him in the future. However, for the sake of her son, Annie refused. She didn't want her identity as a murderer to affect her son's life. On the day of the pardon, Sarah couldn't bear to see Alex leave. The little boy was born in prison and spent 18 months behind bars. Today was finally the day he could leave. His mother held him and cried bitterly, but her fellow inmates asked her, "Do you want your child to grow up in prison?" Everyone knew what was best for Alex. Despite her reluctance, Annie had to let Alex go. When the cell door opened, little Alex happily ran out, unaware that after today, he would never be with his mother again. As they parted, Annie handed a diary to the orphanage director. It was Alex's growth record. Before leaving, Annie said goodbye to Alex. Alex immediately ran over and reached out his little hands, wanting his mom to hold him, but they were separated by the glass, so he couldn't reach her. Seeing her son, who didn't understand anything, Annie couldn't help but shed tears of heartache, but she had to wipe away her tears and leave resolutely. As she was about to leave the orphanage gate, Annie suddenly stopped and turned back, running back without hesitation. She couldn't bear to leave her child behind. But just as she ran over, she saw the foster mother holding Alex. Alex cried out for his mother. Looking through the glass, Alex gazed at Annie. Unable to bear it any longer, Annie broke down and cried bitterly. Without Alex, Annie lost all hope in life. She was like a walking corpse, unaware even when it rained. Grandma Lynn stayed by Annie's side, and gradually, Annie began to recover. She returned to the choir. For years passed in the blink of an eye. The Women's Prisoners Choir became surprisingly famous. The choir was invited to perform in public, and even their families were invited to come and watch. Everyone was very excited, but Grandma Lynn and Annie were not happy. Alex must not remember her. Grandma Lynn got up the courage to call her daughter, but she got no answer. Prison guard Jamie asked Kelly to invite her mother, but Kelly still couldn't forgive her mother, who just watched as she was violated back then. But the kindly prison guard Jamie personally delivered the ticket to Kelly's mother. She then went to Grandma Lynn's daughter's house, but found the door closed with no answer when she knocked. However, prison guard Jamie still slipped the ticket under the door. Finally, Jamie went to Alex's foster parents' home. Upon looking at the grown-up Alex, prison guard Jamie's heart began to ache a little. Does he still remember his mom? On the day of the performance, prison guard Jamie gave Grandma Lynn a new conducting baton. On the stage, Annie heard someone call Alex's name. Despite the rules they had to follow, Annie ran out to the boy, but when she grabbed the boy's hand, she didn't see the mole that was supposed to be on her son's hand. She was disappointed and returned to the choir. At that moment, Director Kim realized that Annie had disappeared, although Annie returned in time. In order to prevent accidents, she warned everyone to be more careful. The women's prison choir was wrongly accused. It turns out that a wealthy lady who, while using the restroom, accidentally lost $1 million diamond ring. The inmates' performance was abruptly cancelled, and security personnel barged into their dressing room. The women, who have tainted reputations, were targeted as prime suspects. They were forced to face the wall and subjected to a thorough search. Finding nothing, the security personnel relentlessly demanded they strip off their clothes. The prison guards were blocked from entering, loudly protesting this violation of human rights. The inmates fiercely resisted, insisting they didn't steal anything, but no one believed them. In order to prove their innocence, a skinny girl took off her clothes first. However, Annie, who refused to be degraded, was forcibly stripped by security personnel and pinned to the ground. The announcer informed everyone that the inmates' performance was temporarily cancelled. Their families, who had been eagerly anticipating the show, were deeply disappointed. Upon learning the news, the warden personally came backstage, and, upon seeing the inmates stripped naked and kneeling on the ground, flew into a rage. They say they didn't steal anything. Then they didn't steal anything. I take full responsibility for everything. Do you understand? She exclaimed, turning to the inmates kneeling on the ground. Now get up, all of you, and continue the performance. Then everyone cried. At that moment, Director Kim came in to inform them to change into their formal attire. As they stepped onto the stage and saw their loved ones, their hearts finally calmed. This is the choir of inmates from the Korean group Fire. Music began playing as Grandma Lynn made a smiling gesture. Everyone perked up, singing earnestly and wholeheartedly. In that moment, they seemed like professional singers. The audience was moved by their beautiful voices and erupted into thunderous applause that lasted a long time. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and a group of young boys holding candles slowly approached the inmates. The expression on Annie's face froze. The boy at the front grabbed Annie's hand and began singing with her. Annie noticed the mole on the boy's hand. Realizing he was the son she had been longing for, she tightly held her son's hand, gazing at his innocent smile, as her heart filled with happiness. As the performance ended, a plump girl Sarah embraced her secret crush boldly, and the skinny inmate met her two long-lost daughters. Grandma Lynn's son also forgave her, and they embraced tightly, shedding tears of relief. Unbeknownst to Grandma Lynn, her daughter also forgave her but was hiding behind a pillar, unsure of how to face her. Prison guard Jamie held flowers and went over to Kelly. They were flowers from Kelly's mother. In that moment, Kelly finally forgave her mother, grabbing the flowers, running towards her, and embracing her tightly. Annie saw her biological son but dared not acknowledge him. She opened her arms, wanting to hug her son, but he looked towards his foster mother and asked, "Mom, can I hug Auntie?" Annie's heart ached. She could only appear as his aunt. Thankfully, the foster mother was understanding. Alex kissed Annie's cheek and embraced his mother, who loved him the most, saying, "I love you." Annie immediately responded, "I love you too." Who in this world loves children more than their mother? Before leaving, the foster mother gave Annie a gift. Annie watched her son leave once again, and struggled to control her emotions. On the way back, Annie opened the gift, and found her son's growth records. Upon seeing their only photo together, Annie held the album tightly and cried uncontrollably. On that day, Grandma Lynn suddenly received a pardon, allowing her to reunite with her family for one day. Her daughter finally forgave her. The two children bowed to Grandma Lynn, and the family enjoyed a harmonious reunion dinner. Meanwhile, Grandma Lynn's life was nearing its end. Alex was born in prison but was fortunately adopted. Due to a surge in crime rates, South Korea found itself with too many criminals to accommodate in prisons. Consequently, South Korea reinstated the death penalty. Grandma Lin was about to be executed. Prison guard Jamie entered her cell and informed her that she had a visitor. Other inmates envied Grandma Lin, but they realized something was amiss. When prison guard Jamie's demeanor changed, Grandma Lin also understood and prepared herself to face her fate, packing her music sheets as she held back tears. Suddenly, Annie closed the door. Holding back tears, she tried to stop Grandma Lin from leaving. "Don't go, please don't go," she pleaded. Grandma Lin assured her that everything would be all right. "I'm sorry I couldn't stay with you until the end," she said. In Annie's eyes, Grandma Lin has always been like a mother. Overwhelmed with emotion, she tightly embraced Grandma Lin, calling her Mom. Others joined in and hugged Grandma Lin tightly. Finally, Grandma Lin calmly put on her shoes, extended her hand for prison guard Jamie to handcuff her, and gazed back at Annie with a serene smile, accepting her fate. At this moment, Annie started singing, and all the female inmates joined in, singing with her. They bid Grandma Lin farewell with their sincerest voices, offering her the most perfect singing by a choir she had ever heard. This film is called Harmony. Question for this issue is, were you moved by this story? If yes, comment 111. Kay hopes Annie can reunite with her child after her release. Family is where true happiness lies. Kay recommends watching the original film. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.